following the first major unrest in Beijing in May 1900, resulting from a growing popular discontent caused by a serious famine and a progressive xenophobic hatred. A large number of foreign ships populated in those months the mouth of the Pe-Tang, at the time a river of primary importance. Each ship landed a contingent of sailors, intended to protect its legation in Beijing, threatened by the growing violence of the insurgents. These included 2 Italian cruisers, RN Elba and RN Calabria. The violence previously mentioned turned shortly after the arrival of foreign troops in Beijing into an armed conflict, first operated by the so-called BOXERs, civilians armed with muzzle-loading weapons and white weapons. And after the capture of the forts of Taku, on the part of the coalition troops, joined the rebels and the imperial troops. Foreign powers coalesced, setting aside historical resentment and mistrust against Chinese violence that undermined their interests in the region. 8 nations landed their sailors and soldiers in an attempt to free the besieged Beijing, restore order to the chaos developed by the rebels, and save European missionaries and thousands of Chinese converts. The 8-nation alliance consisted of the United States, British Empire, Germany, France, Austro-Hungary, Italy, Russia, and Japan. Each nation brought with it an armamentary that represented at the time, for most of them, the last found in the field of firearms. A few years later, these weapons were used during one of the bloodiest conflicts in history. The invention of smoke-free dust in France in the 1880s had started a new race between the great powers to upgrade their arsenals. The French Republic adopted the label in 1886, and in the following years all the European armed forces equipped themselves with similar weapons. The Allies brought with them the models of national production that proved superior to the Chinese models, since the latter were armed mostly with muzzle-loading rifles or old models of European origin. The French Navy and Expeditionary Force used the label mod. 1886. The Germans brought the new Mauser mod. 1898. The Austro-Hungarian sailors who defended foreign legations in Beijing were armed with Mannlicher mod. 1888. The United States Marines used the Krag Jorgensen. Royal Navy sailors landed in China with their Lee Enfield and Lee Metford. The Indian troops that arrived also used the same models. Imperial Russian troops fought with their Mosin Nagant M91. The Japanese Empire instead used both the more modern Arisaka Type 30 and the older Murata. The sailors of the royal ships who first intervened during the summer of 1900 used the now outdated Vetterli rifles. In particular, the crews of Elba and Calabria used the Vetterli Ferraccia mod. 1870/90, which were an update of the Vetterli Bertoldo mod. 1882. But how do these two models differ? The 1882 model, adopted by the Navy in 1884, uses a system devised by the then captain of the genius Giovanni Bertoldo that allowed to convert the Vetterli monocle rifles into repeating rifles, using a tubular tank. Although it represents a step forward compared to any single-shot rifle, the slow refill of the tank prompted the Regia Marina to convert these rifles according to the Ferraccio system. Instead of the tubular tank was installed a vertical tank 4 shots, definitely more practical. Both weapons were equipped with 10.35 47mm R Vetterli. Each sailor carried 90 rounds, judged insufficient by both Italian and Allied officers. For this reason, the Italian contingent at the Pe-Tang, commanded by Lieutenant Angelo Olivieri, was forced to use improvised bullets to repel the Chinese hordes. 2 of these exploded and caused the loss of 2 rifles and the wounding of a sailor. The Regia Marina was also equipped with Carcano mod. 91, but these were only adopted in 1899, replacing the Albini mod rifle. 1868, and the Vetterli and their introduction in the arsenals of the weapon was quite slow since priority was given to the Royal Army. It must also be considered that the 2 ships in question, the Elba and the Calabria, were already in navigation at the time of entry into service of the weapon. The RE units sent to China in fact arrived in the Far East with the new service rifle, which proved to be up to the standards of his European contemporaries. Lieutenant Siriani, in his report, offers us an interesting reflection regarding the effectiveness of the Navy rifle compared to new concept rifles such as the Carcano. Our rifle mod. 1870, although inferior to all new small caliber rifles, is more effective than these, in fights with enemies who do not have firearms, because his bullet stops the man shot, while I saw the Boxers continue to advance, after receiving one, and even more small-caliber bullets. The Imperial Chinese Army on January 5, 1900 had about 200,000 muzzle-loading rifles, most of which were of German origin, manufactured by Mauser. In addition, the Chinese possessed some obsolete models such as Martini Henry, Winchester, Vetterli, Gra, Mini, Werndl, for a total of 29,240 rifles. The total number of loading rifles is 254,420. Finally, there was a large number of muzzle-loading rifles, of the most disparate calibers, used mainly by the Boxers.